Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Unraveler Show with my co-host, so to speak, right now during this series,
Yeah.
Rick Welch. Rick, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing great. This is part 6 or round 6 of a debate on the matrix of God, or God in the Matrix, rather. Sorry, God in the Matrix. And so we've been looking at the different ways to approach scripture, and you're arguing for a matrix type mentality that, I guess the way I would put it, excuses God from the atrocities that I believe he presents in scripture. And you likewise see them from my perspective as atrocities, but you're attempting to defend them and demonstrate how they may not be because they're being used in a way that is appropriate, good. I'm not quite sure yet, still trying to figure that out. So last week we left off with dealing with Deuteronomy 21, was it Deuteronomy 21?
It's Numbers 31.
Numbers 31. Thank you. Numbers 31, and dealing with pedophilia and the children and the little girls being kept and everybody else being slaughtered. And you were going to take a look at that and come back and respond and give an answer. I assume that you've had the time to do that. So I want to give you the opportunity to respond.
Yeah, I mean,
by the way, before you do, I'm sorry. Just let everybody know right out the gate, right after our show today at 5:00, the main event's happening over at Myth Vision. Tristan Gabriel is debating Don Preston over the 70 AD resurrection. I know Rick and I are both going to be watching that. I'm very, very excited about it. So head on over right after this to Myth Vision, and make sure you check that out, Myth Vision YouTube podcast, and you'll see the link there. And so, yeah, be there, show your support, send in some questions using Super Chat. They would greatly appreciate all your support. It's going to be a lot of fun. Anyway, hopefully we'll see you over there after this debate, but that's not for another couple hours. Rick, go back to you. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, you put that post out about our talk today and then about Tristan and Don's later on Myth Vision on Derek's show. And like one of the first comments is, Rick Welch is not a Christian. I was like,
well, that's okay. Neither is Don Preston, apparently. Did you see that?
Evidently, yeah. I mean, it's like, I was like, man, it's like you make it difficult to defend the Christian position. They're just telling me I'm not a Christian anyway. So, I mean, who's going to win?
Well, great. That gives me the victory automatically. I mean, who knew I won before we even started?
Yes. Well, I mean, I hope you noticed, last week I had a real visceral response, and it's not that I haven't read it. I've read the Bible many, many times, but when it was being framed in the way that you were mentioning it, I wanted to sit in it and really look at it, and because I think that that's one of the things that I'm guilty of in the past is that I've just read over things and not really paid attention to it, and so it's easy to remain in a false way of thinking if you really don't stop and think about it, right? You're just going off what everybody else said. And so I really wanted to sit in that, and it was very difficult. I'm not going to lie. It was very hard to look at that and to see it. And so I decided to go into it a little bit deeper. And so I'm going to give my best shot to try to explain this. And hopefully you don't see it as an excuse, because I'm not trying to make an excuse, but I hope that you can at least see the way I'm trying to frame this. Okay. So Numbers 31 isn't isolated unto itself. Numbers 31 is a continuation of an ongoing story. Whether you believe it or you don't, it doesn't matter. Within the context of the Bible, this is a continuation of a story. And it stems back to this Gentile prophet named Balaam and what he's been doing to the nation of Israel. And so his idea is that he was going to try to curse Israel, but he couldn't. God wouldn't let him. And so he ended up having to bless Israel early on in Numbers. And in Numbers 25, the Midianite women, who are in question later in Numbers 31, the Midianite women, they are luring the Israelite men. These are the covenant people that have been, taken out of Egypt, and they're in the wilderness. So these are the men in the covenant, and they are lured away, and God ends up killing 24,000 or 23,000, depending on whether you read the New Testament or the Old Testament, where they're killed for doing this. And this was not just like sex. This was like ritual prostitution of the god Baal. Okay. And so the covenant within the matrix, the covenant is the point, is that God is making this covenant with his people, and he is dealing with the knowledge of good and evil. And I think that's the part that's the hardest for me, is when you look at it from a reformed view where everything is total sovereignty and this is God, and like man, it's almost like God, makes all the choices for men. It feels like when you're dealing with evil and you're thinking about what evil continually looks like, and how harsh and disgusting it could be, how bad evil could really get, that like even me, just in my modern thinking mind, I struggle with like, God, why would you allow this? Like, why would you just even allow men to do this to one another? It's hard with my modern thinking mind. And so when I was looking at this particular story, these men that left Israel and started sleeping and being in this ritual prostitution game with Midian, this was harming the covenant community. This was the covenant people of Israel. It was harming them. It was allowing that God and that other worship and the sexual immorality and all the things that are with it that were not with this particular God. All right. So if we start there, that's the problem. And God is dealing with that problem in 25 by killing the men of Israel. When you go to 31, now God is telling Moses to take vengeance on the Midianites for what they did and to kill their chieftains, is what he's saying. So from a covenant context, again, within the matrix system of the Bible, like looking at covenant and God, he's dealing with the enemies that have already come in and started affecting this covenant community, because they're on the precipice of crossing the Jordan and going into the promised land. This is like the last hurrah, let's say, for the mediator Moses, of dealing with this problem, and his own father-in-law is a Midianite. Okay. Jethro was a Midianite, but these people and under the influence of Balaam have been a problem. So in Numbers 31, God is dealing with Balaam and he's dealing with the chiefs, and then he's killing all the men. But then what happens is the Israelites bring back the women and the children. And so the idea is this is not a true purge, because it was the women that were causing the problems in Numbers 25. They were the ones that were doing the ritual prostitution and bringing the Israelites in. So that is where this has to be stopped. The young boys, again, in covenant context, in ancient Near Eastern warfare, the way that the honor code among men and the way things are, these young men were going to have to reconcile this problem someday with Israel, and they were going to have to fight on behalf of their fathers. It's part of the archaic culture that it was. Now, again, with my modern thinking mind, I'm like, well, God, why didn't you just send Jesus that day? Like, why don't we just send him then? And like, why don't we try to deal with it that day? Because this is problematic for me, just thinking with my modern mind, like this isn't going to work. Like I don't like how this is happening. But then I just started looking at it and I was like, well, okay, so if this is about covenant and it's about purging something before they go into the promised land, if this is actually working its way of getting the evil out of his creation, if that's what's actually happening here, then what is going on with these little girls? That's last week when you mentioned that, Alan, and you were framing it that way. That is what was really bothering me the most, because I was thinking about those little girls and the ability to be powerless in the world, to be with this people who are brutalizing one another. All of these people are brutalizing each other, but Israel is no different. I mean, they're committing war atrocities towards one another as well. But those little girls bothered me the most. And I was like, okay, really what's going on here? Are these children going to be sexually exploited? Is that really what's going on? And I don't think it is. And the reason I don't think it is because Deuteronomy is very clear about how these foreigners are supposed to be taken care of. Now, in that light, these young girls were not going to be the ones that would rise up in tribal warfare and fight them. And these young girls weren't going to be the ones that were going to learn ritual prostitution. These were virgins who were prior to being in the sex game and in the prostitution game that the Midianites knew so well and used to their advantage. So in essence, God's bringing them in. And then he tells the covenant men that are in it that if you desire to marry one, later there are rules in order to that. They have to cut their hair and they have to mourn the loss of their mother and father, and then they can enter into a covenant relationship with them. Now, and that's under the protections of the covenant people. In other words, these children are no longer able to follow the false god or Baal, whatever. They're not allowed to go into that old ritual style prostitution. And if that man, when it said, I was looking really deeply into this because I wanted to know what's going on in that marriage, Alan. Like, okay, so let's say he marries her, but then he doesn't want her and he puts her away. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, because it's like that. How is that a covenant and how is that working? And what it does is the Apostle Paul later in the New Testament actually uses this in two places, in 1 Corinthians 5 and 1 Corinthians 10. And he's defining, like, in this one, and I am going to come back to Numbers 31. He's defining, like, when they're in 1 Corinthians 10, I think it's 10, he's talking about this man that needs to be purged, or maybe that's 1 Corinthians 5. He needs to be purged out of the church because he's sleeping with his father's wife, which I guess is not his mother. It must be like another wife. He's sleeping with his father's wife. And Paul says to, you guys are trying to love this guy and trying to be like super Christians, but I'm telling you that you need to purge this man from your midst and give him over to Satan, that perhaps he can be saved before the final last day, right? So Paul is saying, he's almost using it identically to the idea of what's going on, except in the old covenant, it's a physical thing. It's very physical. And that's why when you get to the New Testament, he's always like first the physical and then the spiritual, first the physical and then the spiritual. So
well, it's actually natural and spiritual, but yeah,
natural and spiritual. But okay, so I would see it as like these girls that were being left. I don't believe that this was for sexual exploitation. I don't believe that the Yahweh of the Old Testament is stating in this particular instance in Numbers 31. I haven't like went and searched all the other examples that you're probably going to bring up to me. I'm just dealing with Numbers 31 right now. Okay. So I don't know all the rest, but in order to really think about it and be honest about it, I really wanted to look at it and say, like, what is going on? And I think from a modern context, like, this is not how I would do things today, right? Like, in my mind, like, I would never do this. So therefore, how can God be good? That is the real problem in the brain, right? But holding it within the matrix context, what I'm saying of progressive revelation and overall covenant the creation of the covenant, keeping the covenant people and keeping it insular. And then they did have allowances for foreigners and the way that they were treat foreigners. And some of those ways that they treat foreigners are actually brutal. It's very brutal. But when you get to those little girls, it certainly seems to me like he's not completely eliminating the Midianite humanity. He's allowing them, the girls that have not been affected by their culture to the extent of ritual prostitution, which is evident because it was found in Numbers 25. That's what's going on in that culture. And those chieftains were using it to their advantage to usurp the authority of all these other tribes around them. And Israel was no different. So this was in essence a purge of those that were in Israel that were wanting to be a part of this Baal worship. And it was also a slaughter of all of those that could come in and destroy the covenant people. And basically not protect the seed line that's going to eventually come, that we hear about from Genesis 3 all the way to the end of Revelation 20, where that seed is going to crush this evil, eventually, fully crush him, that's protecting. So there's numerous things that are happening on so many levels that I can see and understand from the covenant perspective, and then later in the new covenant, how Paul is utilizing those. But the thing that you said last week too, which is in regard to this, was about slavery. And you were talking about ultimately, maybe refresh my memory, what you said about Jesus, that he never preached against slavery and that he wanted us to be slaves in essence. Isn't that what you said? Something like that?
Yeah, he never once speaks against it. And in the end contexts, the apostles are all calling themselves slaves of Christ. So, and in Romans 7, Paul declares that we become free from being slaves to sin, so that we can become slaves of God. Mm-hmm. So not only does Jesus not speak against it, but the New Testament actually promotes it, that we are now slaves of God for eternity.
Mm-hmm. And so I looked at that too, because I was like, All right. First of all, are you right? And I would say, yeah, he actually doesn't talk like slavery was a part of his culture, and he doesn't talk about it in the negative light. I don't. Now, I want to say this. I don't think it's the same slavery as like what us Americans know about 200 years ago. I don't think it's the same kind, but it's still slavery nonetheless. It's
I mean, I
and
think
it's,
you're eisegeting that into the text because you don't want it to be, but I mean, there's nowhere in any context aside from the specific statements of indentured servitude in the Old Testament where any of the slavery was somebody could be free to get out. Like, it's not remotely this employer-employee relationship that
no,
Christians
I
love to
agree.
throw on the text. It is,
I'm not saying that. I'm
you're
not saying
absolutely
that.
owned and you're
Yes.
a slave for life. Like, that's so, and the fact that you can actually beat your slave within 3 days of his death, that sounds a lot like modern slavery to me, but maybe it was even worse than modern slavery. Who knows? But
Yeah,
I do know that modern slavery, for the most part, was originally pulled from the Christian text. Actually, a lot of the Christians believed that God approved slavery and thought we should own slaves, and eventually later changes their view, which is really strange because if you're pulling this from the Bible, why did our view change all of a sudden? God didn't change. God never changes. So they were right the first time. The second time, they just decided to disregard what God says and no longer have slaves. But anyway, so yes, it is definitely not this working friendship relationship where you sign a contract and then leave when you want to. That's not the kind of
I
slavery.
agree. It's not that. It's not
Right.
that. I agree with you. It's not that. So whenever I was looking into the Jesus Slave Act, and I was thinking, I was like, this is a hideous way of looking at it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what's going on? And something that was really unique. Jesus actually uses those words in terms of his relationship with him and his disciples. He said, "You call me master." And when he uses that word as servant to them, he's actually using the term slave there. He is. He's actually saying, "You call me master, and rightly so, and you as a slave." But then what he does is he flips the power dynamic with it by this action of washing their feet. And he's telling them that you're going to become a slave, and I right now am acting as your slave. When Jesus gets down on his knees and he washes their feet, and he shows this continual working down to where he becomes really like even a slave to the point where he goes to this cross. Like I think Hebrews uses it as humbling himself to this point where he goes to the cross, ultimately being elevated. Like you'd said last week, yes, he's being elevated. I don't think he's being elevated so that he has all of these slaves that just, like fan him and feed him grapes. What ends up happening is that the believers, those who remain servants, those that follow him, are to act in the same way that he did, which was to make themselves lesser than other people and to become servants of those around us. So I see it as, because I believe in a fulfilled, covenant, that we live in a fulfilled world, that in essence has turned me into a person that's become a servant to others, even though I may not want to be a servant of others. And that is when I define my experience to you about being a believer and how I had this experience. That's the only way that I could prove anything was this experience. That's the best way that I know how to explain it, is whenever I was, say I encounter somebody and there's something that I necessarily don't really want to do, but I feel this overwhelming love and desire to do this, whatever it may be, to help or to whatever it may be, that I know that some would say, well, that's just you, Rick. And we've said this is number 6. I've said this over and over. And I say, I don't know how to explain it to you. And I say, that innately is not coming from me, because I know what I sound like. I know what I want. And I don't really want to get involved with this, but I'm going to. And because, and by saying that, I don't have something in the back of my head that says, because if I don't, I'm going to burn in hell forever. That's not what's going on. It's almost like what those words those disciples used as being a slave to Jesus or a slave to the Spirit, is that it's this compulsion that we feel that how else could I lay my life down for someone else? How else could I put myself in harm's way for someone else? Yes, other people have done that and can do that, and they don't need Jesus to do it. Even Paul says that in his writings. But in my case, it happens to be from this overwhelming love and this just this incredible sense of need to do this. Like, it's a compulsion. It does feel, I guess you would, I mean, I don't think it's like slavery, because we know how brutalized slavery can be. So I don't want to say it in that light. It's not right. But to be compulsory, to feel that calling to do it, that's what it feels like. It's not me. It's something I'm doing because I'm feeling, pulled into it. So looking at Numbers 31, the way that I'm interpreting it at this stage is the way that Paul was interpreting it in 1 Corinthians 5 and 1 Corinthians 10 in regard to the protection of the covenant, which was natural and in physical, but the ultimate was an example for them now in the spiritual generation that's going to take it into fulfillment. Do I like it? I'm not going to lie. It's hard, man. It is very hard, but I don't see it. I don't see it in the same light as you do. That's kind of like where I'm at. I don't see it in that same light.
All right, so let's just say you're correct for the moment, and that this is only about saving these little girls, because the boys, men, and women, they were all evil and they needed to be punished.
No, I'm not. That's not even what I'm saying either. It's not. I can't say it that way.
Oh, can you explain that a little bit better? Because
I'm saying that it's about, within the matrix itself, it's about the covenant. It's about the covenant and purging of the covenant.
Right, what are you purging the men, women, and children for? The boys.
You're purging the women, because the older women are already involved in this ritualistic prostitution. Like all of them?
Every last one of them?
Well, I mean,
they were all being prostitutes?
I mean, I don't know if we know the Midianites show up much later in Joshua. It doesn't kill every woman. It's just talking about the ones that are in Peor.
In this text, he's killing all of them.
In Peor.
What's that?
In Peor, Baal of Peor. This is a specific section where the Midianites are operating, but it's not all the Midianites. It's just them having vengeance on the Midianites in this tribe, in this particular area. That the ones that actually affected the covenant men and ended up, 24,000 men were killed because of it.
So why are the men of Peor being punished?
You mean the boys?
No, the men. What did they do?
Because they're warriors. They're going to, the whole idea is that if you can get these Israelites sort of like sidetracked with whatever's going on, like with this this other god, and getting them involved in their women, they're becoming weak, and so then eventually these warriors are going to come in and slaughter all of Israel. That's what all these tribes are doing to each other,
even though they were already conquered.
Who was already conquered?
The men of the Midianites. Once they're defeated, and as in many occasions, God says, "Hey, you won. Now go slaughter them." They put up the white flag and they get killed anyway. Why?
Again, it's within the covenant context. It's about the purging and protection of the covenant people as a corporate body to carry them into the promised land, right?
And that's why the boys have to be killed too?
Because the boys will grow up to become the warriors, yeah.
Have you ever seen Minority Report? It's a movie with Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah, I have. That's the one where he's able to see the future crimes.
Yeah, so they punish people based on crimes they haven't yet committed. Mm-hmm. Do you think that that's ethical?
No.
Isn't that what's happening here?
Well, isn't God able to see the future though?
And that's what they could do in Minority Report, right? You said that wasn't ethical.
Well, I mean, I was talking about from like man's perspective. Like when you look from God's perspective, I see a little bit of a difference there.
Why? You can either predict the future or you can't. And in that case, they could, and they would punish the people for crimes before they committed it. Do you think that's ethical?
I mean, I don't see the similarity between a man's judgment and what God's judgment is for his covenant people. I don't see a similarity there.
You can tell the future and you can see somebody's going to commit a crime, then you should be able to punish them, just like God looks into the future and sees perfectly that these boys are going to do their thing, so he has the right to punish them. It would be the parallel is the same. You can either tell the future correctly or you can't. I mean, that movie asks a very ethical question, and it's this question right here.
I mean, Okay, I haven't seen the movie in 20 years. It's been a long time, but
That's essentially what
if
it's
we're
about.
framing it, if we're framing it in, in the light, I'm thinking of as so God as a God that is ultimately trying to rid the entire world of the effect of knowledge and good and evil to get them to a place where they can be in relationship with him for eternity and actually get to see the truth of who he is and what it takes to get there. As far as ethical is concerned, ethics, it fits right within the frame of ethics. I don't like all the ethics that I deal with in my world today, but I deal with ethics in my world today.
Okay, so how did killing all these people benefit anyone in that time?
It benefited the covenant people.
How?
Because it was preventing the worship of Baal. And basically, before they go to take the promised land, it's keeping the covenant intact. And the covenant line is important because it's carrying the seed line. It's carrying the ultimate seed line, which is where Christ is going to come through. And it's got to survive. It's got to come from this point. This is what God is doing. He's working inside this world in order to carry it to the future, to get to the Christ, in order for him to complete it.
And so killing everybody, including children, babies, in a worldwide flood or even a global flood, you think that that's a good idea to preserve and protect the covenant? You think this is good? How is that helping anybody when the only people left are Noah and his family?
This is the entirety of the problem of good and evil. This is the problem. Like if you ask me, Rick, do you like him drowning everybody on the world? Do you like him drowning everybody? And I say, no, I don't like him drowning everybody. I get it.
In your mind, God can predict the future, determine who's going to be evil and destroy these covenant lines and slaughter them for their evil. But God's not capable of preventing this evil to begin with, so he doesn't have to slaughter women and children.
You have to ask the question, why did the tree? I started at the very beginning of this discussion with you. We could just ask him why he put the knowledge of good and evil tree in the garden in the first place. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, we're all
exactly.
Yeah,
it is a problem. That's like if you are able to not punish and destroy people and torture children because you put a plan in place that would bring about sin to make this torture and punishment happen, that's kind of an ethical issue for me, and I would imagine it would be for you. That's there's nothing about your God that's good if that's your God.
But see, the reason I see that it's as good is because the ultimate, and I know you don't like this answer, but the ultimate is that now you can have a world that's got good and evil, this moral autonomy and the problems that are with it, that can receive grace and actually know what the liberty of love actually is. Like, I see that first garden as this insular place where freedom and love is protected. It's there, but it has there are issues here. With liberty comes consequences as well, because if a person just makes a decision that says, I don't want to have this.
But what boys and girls made that decision at that age?
Again, they're trapped within this time frame of this overall.
So
overall thing. I get it.
They get punished for the sins of their parents.
Look, Alan, if you try to say it like this, okay, and I am trying to be as honest as I possibly can with you. When you wrote your book, you had something in mind. You have something in mind with your book. And I know what it is. You want to purge Christianity and what you consider to be bad and all of its stuff out of people to set them free. That is a goal that you have. And you're willing to sit with me for hours to discuss it, because this is what we do in our modern time. We discuss things. We don't slaughter each other with swords. And, well, actually, that's not true. We're not, because we're trying to be civilized about it, but that doesn't mean the rest of the world is. We still live in a world that's uncivilized and still slaughters each other for their reasoning. But ultimately, your goal is to purge people of what you believe to be a mind virus and that is bad for humanity. And you stake your reputation on it and you work hard for it. and you do a masterful job at pointing out so many different things that are high control, that are awful, that we find within Christianity and other religions as well. But that in and of itself, that act that you want to do is protecting what you would consider a community that you cherish. You cherish a community that you believe that can think freely, that doesn't have to feel like their works are as low as a minstrel rag, that they're not a maggot. You want to purge these people of this so that you can bring them to your Bondar's promised land, which is a better place in your mind, because you're happier, you're more free than you've ever been. Like that's why you do what you do, and within the context of that, and I know this is true, since you've been working on this, you have also went back and rewritten and rethought, because you see certain things that are preventing you from getting to this place, because what you're dealing with are human beings with rational thinking minds that are free and at liberty to do so, because you see freedom and you understand, I want you to be free and you can be free from this. If you are in this system, you're not free. If you're outside of this system, you are. And that's the hope that you have for them. So you will rewrite and rework and configure in order to get them there. And I'm telling you that when I look at God in the Matrix in the beginning, and the struggles that I have with the beginning and that tree and the serpent even being there, it creates an issue. And the only reason I'm taking myself back to that place is because my experience that I had in my life with what I believe to be Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit draws me to it. I go back to it. So I have to look at it in that light. And I'm looking at it from this side backwards, where these people are looking at it and living it, and then it comes to fruition, and then somebody writes it down. Some people believe it's inspired, and some people don't think it's inspired. But I definitely think it's inspired. And I think that what we're seeing is this problem immediately with a man being alone, and then getting this helpmeet, and then having this tree that's presented, and then the helpmeet taking it, and how it begins to work its way. And the minute it does, the separation from God happens. And I don't sit, like, I'm not in the Reformed camp in like that deep. I believe that Adam and Eve, I've said before, that they had liberty, and that this was going to happen. This was going to happen because humanity does this. This is what we do. Otherwise, we're automatons and robots. So I see this whole story, this entire story, as nasty and as ugly as it gets. And I see that this particular people and what they were designed to be was the insulator, the carrier over eons of time of dealing with humanity in the world. Like, I don't even know what evil continually all the time really looks like. I don't even know what that looks like. But I'm assuming that it's something so heinous that we don't even know. Like, we can, like, have you ever seen something that shocks you to the core? I feel like that's what's going on all the time in those things. I'm not in the position to go and fill up that earth and drown it and start over with 8 people, because that's not who I am. I'm a person, and I'm in the midst of all this too. So that's where I understand the difficulties with these texts. And I want to do my best to try to be patient about it. But at the same time, like, I don't know where to go, because I know your ultimate goal is that you want to purge it from me, because that's your ultimate goal. And you're going to keep rewriting it and keep reworking it. And you're going to find a way until you hope that you can get it out of me and everyone else. And you're doing what I think is the same thing that Moses and these other people are doing, is everybody is trying to get whatever it is that's in their mind, get this out of them, and get them onto where I think is the right place to be, and I get it, but we got to replace it with something. You have to replace it with something that's better.
Okay. So I have a lot to respond to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, and I have so many things.
Thanks for letting me talk.
Yeah, I got a lot of things to say. I'm
going to be quiet now.
Well, that's right. I'm not going to want you to be quiet. I'm going to want you to answer some questions or respond to some things. But that last thing you just said, Can you repeat that last thing about what I'm trying to do? Because it's the way you said it, I was like, I didn't agree with that. Can you say it again?
What I'm saying, well, was it the part when I said it's kind of like Moses or the others that write when
Yeah,
they're
right
trying to?
before that, you said something. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying like when your goal is to deliver people is your goal. That's what I'm trying to say. Your goal is to deliver people from something into something better. That's your whole goal.
Yeah. But you said something along the lines of believing this versus believing that or something. I don't recall, but anyway, my response to that, whatever exactly you said,
Yeah.
I wish we could rewind and watch, but we can't do that right now. First of all, regarding that, do you think we have a dependable method by which we can test and determine the supernatural?
No.
All right. Logic follows then that if we do not have a method by which we can determine the supernatural, then therefore the supernatural has never been determined to exist. Correct? That would logically follow.
Okay, so are we talking about, see, this is where, again, if I'm using my interpretation of God as experience, and I'm saying that I can perform my own tests and I can
You can
justify it
believe
to myself.
yeah, and you can think what you experience is real, and that's fine. But I'm asking you. You said we don't have a way to test it, and determine it. Like, so I can't test what you've experienced and say, oh, well, that proves it to me, Rick. You believe it because something happened to you, and you've just decided, well, this is God, and that for whatever reason you think it's God.
Yes.
Fine, but
Okay.
nobody else on the planet can verify that. Correct?
Right. That's correct.
So there is no way that we can provide verifiable evidence of anybody's personal experience. Everybody's personal experience is the only method they have for themselves, and that's it. That's called faith alone, because even you can't prove it. There's no demonstrable way to do that. So that's what I established in my book. It is faith alone, contrary to what any Christian tries to say. No, but it's evidence too. No, it's not, because there is no evidence. There's evidence consistent with the claim, but it's also consistent with the claim that the flying spaghetti monster created the world. That it's always saying is there's something out there that does not prove anything about the supernatural.
Correct.
So everything you believe about God is simply believed by faith. You've never tested it. You can't test it. You can't verify it. You can't duplicate it. You can't do the same thing over and over again. You can't have others come in and say, hey, let's test this with you and let's have some peer review and let's make sure, Rick, that you're not deceiving yourself and just believing something because, well, you've just been tricked into believing it. If you had that, then I would say, well, your faith should be substantiated a little bit more, but you can't do that. And we've never been able to do that. Thus, the supernatural has no verifiable evidence whatsoever. Does it make more sense to hold to something without evidence or to withhold believing until there is evidence? Which makes more sense?
Well, what are you testing?
Whatever it is you're choosing to acknowledge as true.
Okay. So if you are like, you've got to, if you're going to take this into test and verification, what are we testing? Are we going to test something that only an individual person would know? Like
No.
I can't, can
I'm
I come to
saying,
you and ask you to prove something about you and then let's verify it among everybody else?
yes, right. I'm saying, is there a way to verify, not just from personal experience, where quite literally faith alone can quite literally believe anything and declare it true, can it not?
Sure.
So there's nothing whatsoever to hold faith to a standard or a litmus to say, no, you can't believe that because faith is not allowed to believe that because there's no law to demonstrate that it should, or there's no verifiable, there's no standard by which to hold you. If it's just based on my personal whatever, I can believe blacks are better than whites, or whites are better than blacks. I can believe that Hitler was right. We should kill all Jews. And literally, if it's faith and my God told me, I'm right. and you can't tell me I'm not. There is
So
no way to verify that.
the only thing that I believe that I can do personally within the community of believers, and it has to happen within the community of believers, you see, because the only way that I can verify it is, like, let's say Jesus said, by their fruit you will know them. He'll say those things, right? So
And then
what
he'll
is
also say you'll be, those who think they did good, he'll say, I never knew you. So
that's right. But again, what does he say? Many will come to me and said, Lord, Lord. That's what you're talking about, right? And I'll say, I never knew you. Depart from me. Okay. By their fruit, you will know them. By their fruit. So the fruits that he's talking about is something that seems to be that you could verify. If you see that, if I see somebody
but you can't, because that's the whole point. You can look at somebody and you cannot know for sure if that person's. People would have looked at me my entire life and would have said, Alan is definitely a Christian. By my fruits, they knew me.
Mhm.
And yet, here we are.
Have your fruits changed?
No, I'm the
They
same
haven't?
dude. I'm a nice
Right.
guy still. I still do the same stuff. I've not
Right.
I've not gone evil. I'm not out there, unlike God, killing babies and slaughtering women for whatever reason, or enslaving people. I'm not doing that. I have a better morality than God does. So no, I have good fruits, but that does not verify that I'm a Christian in any way, shape, or form, because I'm not.
You also have the benefit of being a product from all of it as well.
Okay. And so do
And
people who have been atheists their whole lives, like Jacob
that's
Bergman.
fine. You can't deny, like I've told you, I feel like it's a betrayal of the foundation which was set in me. You can't deny that effect on who you are today. Now, would you have been a moral person outside of it? Probably. You would have probably had enough in your culture to teach you, because we have a culture that's based on particular laws. Some of them are Judeo-Christian and some of them aren't.
Well, yeah, but we're assuming that the American way of living is the right way, as if this is some
It's just because it's where we live.
objective standard of morality. But other standards of morality can be entirely different and still be
Agreed.
okay. So by your fruits means absolutely nothing, because an American reading that verse will look at my fruits, because I'm American Christianity, and they'll say, oh, he's a Christian. But go to some other culture where they're doing entirely different practices. Oh, they can't be a Christian because their fruits don't show it, because they're basing fruits on culture. That's not,
but
how do you base that?
those fruits are cross-cultural.
No,
Those
they're
fruit,
not.
yes, they are. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control are not cross-cultural.
I mean, well, okay. So what makes you think self-control is necessarily a good thing?
Because it is a good thing. Self-control, I think it's a good thing.
I do too. But how do you know
I think
this
it's
for
a great
sure?
thing.
I mean, like let's look at one.
Because I've tested it and verified it.
Okay, good one. So let's look at another one. Coveting, for example. I
Mhm.
think coveting is wonderful. The Bible teaches that it's a bad thing, and therefore should be a work that you can observe that somebody doesn't covet. That's a fruit of the Spirit. I'd be like, no, I think coveting is a wonderful thing. It drives us to be better and to get things that we want in life. That's a stupid sin. I don't even understand why that's a sin.
I don't think. Are you sure you understand what coveting actually is
Oh, I
then?
do. I want what that person has. So
Yeah, but not to the point where it becomes lust.
Well, what's wrong with lust?
What's wrong with lust?
What's wrong with lust? We talked about this last week. You have a
Lust
standard that you
unhinged.
think is wrong.
Lust. I have a standard. Like if we're talking about coveting somebody else's things to the point to where it becomes like a god to you, it becomes like an idol to you. It's something that like it's the thing, man. Like
Okay.
I'm going after it, right?
Sure. What's wrong with that?
What do you mean what's wrong with
The
it?
only reason you think there's something wrong with that is because you believe we should worship God, and anything that interferes with that becomes a god. Take God out of the equation. What's wrong with that?
Okay, again, the definition of covet, the full definition of covet. It's like, oh, I just want that. No, it's not just want that. It's like full on. It's like almost like what you're trying to rid me of addiction. You're like, you need to get out of that addiction. Is it coveting addiction?
What's wrong with that?
Are
That's
you
what I'm
saying?
asking. Like you think it's wrong because you have this certain standard based on the Bible, but I'm asking you, take God out of the equation, take a family out of the equation, leave me to myself, and all I have is just what I want in life. What is wrong with that drive?
Because you want what they have. You want what you can go out and let's say you see somebody that's got a Chevy truck and you're like, man, I want that. That's not coveting. It's wanting his truck, wanting to take his
The
truck.
same truck.
That.
Stealing is taking his truck. There's a reason the 10 commandments have both of those as commandments.
And
Otherwise,
so
coveting would have covered both.
But coveting and wanting his truck, which is the lust of the heart, wanting what he's got, instead of wanting to see him built up and have and enjoy and encourage, you want to take what he has from him. Your neighbor's wife, he says. Why was
stealing required as a second commandment then?
Because that's when you actually did it.
I thought if you do it in your heart, it's sufficient as a sin.
That was from Jesus.
Oh, so God didn't know that ahead of time. Wasn't that Jesus?
No,
wasn't Jesus Yahweh?
You know exactly what I'm saying. Jesus is showing, yes, because if you take it from the natural to the spiritual, Jesus is the mediator of the new covenant. I thought you just agreed coveting was a spiritual thing, a heart thing. Coveting is a heart thing. So when he looks at that, so stealing is the full outer working. So he's showing you both.
But
absolutely.
Why do you need both is what I'm saying in the same set of commandments if they cover the same thing?
Why do you think? Seriously.
I
think it's just redundant? Okay, so that's the joy of you. You get to say, I don't know.
Well,
so
I'm saying right the commandments, but I think stealing would have been a wonderful commandment.
So when you look at your neighbor, when you begin to covet your neighbor's things, what does that do to the relationship between you and your neighbor?
It makes me want to learn from him as much as I can so I can get the things that he has.
Not necessarily. It can also break down the relationship.
Correct.
Right. It can. So if you take good and evil, there's your moral autonomy. There's your problem with it.
I have no problem with saying coveting can be bad, but I'm saying it's not just automatically bad.
And the Bible says that most of the time, men would do the bad thing. That's what only evil continually is.
Because you believe there's a thing called sin and everybody does this thing called sin. I'm saying take that out of the equation, take the Bible's rule book out of the equation and how people are supposed to live and what these special rules are, and you just let us determine morality on our own. You no longer have to say that because somebody covets, it's a sin. You only have to say that because you have a Bible that tells you this thing is called sin.
And by saying if we let us determine morality on our own, that in itself is doing nothing more than the knowledge of good and evil crap that continues.
No, bro,
I know you're saying take it away from the Bible, but we're talking about moral autonomy.
We're already determining morality on our own by choosing the Bible as our source.
And you also know that morality changes cross-culturally, just like you said earlier.
Except when it comes to the Bible, Christians go to other cultures and try to reculture them like American Christians and tell them this is the way God wants. Not because they understand one bit about what the Bible actually teaches about morality, but because they've learned Christian morality from America, they go and re-evangelize these other nations and cultures.
And I agree 1,000% with you about American Christianity and what American Christians do. I get that. But that's what I'm saying.
I get that. No two Christians follow this transcendent moral standard. Everybody makes up what they want and then they ascribe it.
I disagree with that because I have seen because I've seen people. I have actually seen people that are the most self-sacrificing, loving, kind. I mean, have you ever, you remember the strike on the left cheek and give them to your right when Jesus said that? Okay. If I actually saw that in action one time, I was blown away when I saw it. And I remember asking this guy, because I worked with him, and asking, he was a terrible drunk. And when I say terrible drunk, I mean like abusive, right? And after he had this experience with God, suddenly he gets hit, knocked down in the parking lot, and he doesn't fight back. That's just one.
Why is that good?
Because what he can do to another human being, if it's let go, if it's not controlled, it can ruin him and somebody else's life or a lot of people's lives, all kinds of
things. If he does nothing, it can ruin his and his family's life.
It can, but again, because of our faith, we know that we could be in a situation. where something could bad happen to us, and
Comes
we
down
understand
to
it.
faith. That's what I'm
Again,
saying.
faith is the evidence of things unseen. So I can't give you anything seen. I can't. I
No, all right.
can't,
So,
other than my experience.
I want. So I'm going to go back to because this. So I still have so much to say from your thing you said 20 minutes ago. Trying to get back around full circle. So when I was taking that line of
And
reasoning,
I don't mean to hurry you. I literally have 10 minutes.
oh no, I thought we had till like 4:30 today. No, okay.
Did we go an hour? Did we say an hour and a half? I thought it was an hour.
I thought we were going to do that, but you know what? It's fine. If you have to go, we'll just pick up next week.
No. I tell you what. I'll extend it a little bit.
We
Just
always
keep
have
going.
last week. We always have last week. I'll try to bring this full circle, and we'll bring up something new next week. So when I was bringing up the comments about what makes more sense to withhold until you have evidence, or to hold to something without evidence, you said it depends on whether you have faith or whatever, and whether you have some way to believe for you personally, and that's fine and good, and that's great for you personally. But when you made the parallel that my goal is to take people into some AlanBondar promised land, I gotta say, dude, it's not some AlanBondar promised land. My goal is to help people see that they're holding on to something that they actually have no evidence for, even if they think they do, which is fine. If you want to live thinking you think you have this faith or whatever, this evidence, fine. But in reality, you have to somewhere along the line admit that you don't have actual evidence. You have perceived evidence. You have an experience that took place, and you perceive that as evidence of God or the supernatural. But there is no actual, tangible, provisional evidence that we can provide that everybody can test and verify. Rick, your experience is in fact a supernatural experience. You just can't do that. It is perceived, not real. And so what I want people to do is see that they are holding to a position that they have no grounds to hold to. It is simply perception. And that is a deceiving way to live, because once you can come to a point where you can realize that your experience is being perceived only one way, instead of saying, let me take a step back and see if there are other ways that this experience could have been, could be taking place. And then bring in peers and say, hey, just to make sure I'm not deceiving myself and living a life in this sting, this belief in the supernatural that I'm just perceiving because I don't know why. I like it, or this paralleled with that, and it looks like it happened. I mean, really, that your experience and it paralleling with the words of Jesus is no different than the argument that says, I believe God exists because, or Yahweh exists because of intelligent design. I mean, you're essentially saying the same thing. You have evidence that is consistent with your proposition, but you do not have evidence that verifies your proposition. And that's my concern. When you can get others involved and you can look at all the other possibilities and you can say, okay, and they can say, oh, here's one that might make sense too. Let's reduplicate your experience and see if that fits this model. And then theoretically, all 5, 10, 15 of you can say, yep, we all see it. This is the model that works. Or maybe they'll all find out it's a supernatural model. Great. I'm not opposed to that. In fact, I'd love to be one of those test people, because I would love to experience this with you and say, hey, we've all verified this. The supernatural 100% exists. I
can't remember if you said this in your book or not. Have you, while you were a Christian, did you ever experience something that was supernatural that you now think wasn't?
Yes.
Did you talk about that in your book? I can't.
Yes.
It's a big book.
Yeah, no, it is. No, it's okay. I understand. It was my experience with Satan. Yeah, when I was on a mission trip. And I thought he was actually in my room, and he was at my feet, and he was actually scaring the shit out of me. But turned out it was just an experience with a circling fan and a curtain. That's really what it was. Looking back, I remember this now so vividly. But my mind wanted it to be this spiritual warfare, because I was taught that that's happened when you go on mission trips. You better be ready. Satan's going to come after you. So what do you think my mind did at 13 or 14 years old? That was my assumption. But there was no reason to believe that, other than I had a perception that was placed into my head that I could only end up seeing it that way. Even though I know there were other options, I was only able to see it that way because it was fed into my head. I think that may very well be what happened to you, although I can't prove that to you without you actually providing an opportunity for me and others to verify and test your experience. Then we can prove to you that your position is incorrect if we can show that this one is correct.
So see, and I understand, I understand that frustration on your part. I can totally see that. And from my, pardon, I'm so sorry. Excuse me. One of the things that frustrates me is by experience, it's not just experience of me, it's experience of others that I've seen. And I remember when you were here with me when we were in the studio, and we talked about this, was like, the next time you come down here, I can physically drive you to a person that was in stage 4 pancreatic cancer that is now cancer free, and tell you about the experience that we had as a group of believers. There were over 40 of us. And I told you, I think I told you that even I was like doubting whenever I was in the group, about praying this, like I was doubting about it, and how this whole group prayed for this particular woman. And her name is Heather. And she was stage 4 pancreatic. It was terrible. It was not looking good. And we prayed, and she was going to a location up in Kentucky to have something radical done. They were trying, like, stage 4 pancreatic is like a death sentence. Honestly, it really is for most. And so she was going, and we were praying over her about that. And when she got to the doctor, and then they told her that she didn't have any sign of cancer, and they had the original documentation from quite a while, because she had cancer for over 2 years, that they could bring, from the other hospitals. And this was a radical treatment center. And when they get there, she doesn't have it. And so when those kind of situations happen and you have numerous people, I know that, like in your book, like there's other ways that you can equate what happened to this woman. But the difficulty is that when you have a body of people that this person had cancer before, and we all, like, it was almost like mourning her because of what was happening, and we knew it was terrible. And I'll never forget that day. And I'll never forget hearing that she no longer had that cancer. And see, I can't test that tomorrow. Like, I can't. It's a unique circumstance. And I wish I could test it. I wish I could say,
It is unique. And here's my question to you, though.
Uh-huh.
There's no doubt that is a unique and, well, not totally unique, but somewhat unique and powerful experience.
And I mean this. I will introduce to you her to personally. I will.
That's fine. I have no problem with that. And it could be God. Could be.
Okay.
My question is, are you 100% certain, without any equivocation, that was God?
Yes, and I say it because when you have all of us who are calling on, in particular, Jesus and his Holy Spirit, who has this healing capability because of what we think. I've heard of people saying that, like, these positive energies and things, like, people, and there's enough people that they can affect things, and I've heard that too. But I've also, when you have so many people, like, crying out to the Lord for this, and by the way, if he hadn't have answered and she had died, that all of us would have remained in our faith anyway, right? Like, that's just the way that it is, and I get it. But that was and so it's almost like it doesn't even have to be verified. It's almost like we're at your mercy and we're begging on this behalf. So because what I'm saying, we're using the name Jesus, so therefore he gets the credit.
Yeah, of course. But that's what I'm saying is, it's not unique to just your experience of people praying to Jesus that this happens. You just gave me another example of others that do it with energy. I can tell you right now, there's people in satanic church that pray to Satan and he heals. And
I've never experienced that. I've never been there and
experienced it. And that's the whole point.
I get it.
The whole point isn't what did your personal experience happen because in your group you were praying to Jesus. Therefore, in your group it has to be Jesus. In some other group it's energy. In some other group it's Satan. Some other group it's the flying spaghetti monster. Whatever. My point is, yes, something took place that was extravagant through a group of people working together and talking together and even praying together and praying to this thing together. But that does not mean that your experience of all of that means that the thing you were praying to is what actually did it. You can't possibly know that without any equivocation. You can't.
That's a fair assessment. It's a fair assessment, Alan, because if I watch somebody over there praying to the flying spaghetti monster and then that person gets healed, and I'm on my end over here and I say, well, that was just mercy of God. That would be an unfair equivocation. I can't do that because it's not my experience over there. I'm not over there, right? So I
Correct.
get it. Your argument stands. I totally understand it.
And the only thing I'm saying is, I know you think the most likely probability is that it was God because of the situation you experienced. I'm only asking people like you to admit that you actually can't know with certainty what actually produced the result because you have no way of verifying that the God you prayed to was the one behind it. You just don't know.
I have no way of verifying it to anyone else but me. You're right. I have no way of verifying it.
But even to you, then,
but to me, Jesus is the name that has the power.
But if you can't verify it to somebody else, then how can you know it is to you? Because listen, before you can verify something to somebody else, you have to be able to verify it to yourself. And if you can't even verify it to yourself, then you have no means by which to verify it to somebody else. And that tells me you have no means by which to verify it to yourself.
And within your verification process, I have to agree because I can't look at you and say, well, I've prayed to the flying spaghetti monster for 4 months and then I got my answer. Right. I've never done it.
But what I hear you saying is the way you verify it to yourself is you have an experience, and because you prayed to God, it's God. What? How is that verification even to yourself, dude? All that is verification that what happened was a result of you praying to this God. That's not verification that the God actually did it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have you ever seen anything supernatural before?
Not in reality, no.
Have you ever seen anybody healed of anything before?
Sure. My dad came out of a coma he was supposed to die in. Everybody was praying for him.
And so at that time,
doctors talk about how that's positive energy and it actually helps people come out of comas. But of course, the Christian mind is, oh, it was God. Let's not actually give credit to the doctors that did anything.
I mean, I know, but we start getting into the talking about positive energies. We have no way of verifying that either.
Exactly. Precisely.
Yeah. So can we believe the doctors?
We can believe that doctors because what we do have is verifiable science that demonstrates repeatedly that these effects do this. Do you know that through the prayer studies that were done, people who were prayed for and knew they were being prayed for actually got sicker and worse than when they went in there? Like
I'm sure there's
prayer studies have demonstrated that there is no veracity to prayer whatsoever. It's completely inconsistent. But what Christians do, and you know this is true, you can all be praying. And when God heals, it was a miracle. God did it. When he doesn't, well, sometimes God just chooses not to do anything. God always gets the credit, and you were praying the same direction. So if you can't actually have the same result every single time with the same prayers, how can you say that God's doing anything?
Mm-hmm. And I totally get that. And you and I have talked at length about my own personal experiences and what I journal. And so it's a toughie.
No, it is a toughie. And I get that, especially when you are where you are, because you've held faith, and I get where you, believe me, dude, I was where you were, and you could never have convinced me otherwise. No, I know it's God. It's got to be God. But I'm just asking people like you to come to a place where you just admit, you're right. I can't know. I can't verify it to myself. I can verify what I did. I can verify why it happened, what I did, but I can't verify that God had anything to do with it. All I can say is I did this happened. And actually we could test that. We could go out, we can read the same verses together. We can go and do the same project together. We can go do the same giving, whatever it is, the things you did. And we can see if these same results produce themselves. Mm-hmm. And no matter how many times we see these results produce themselves, you know what we can't prove? That God had anything to do with it, because we have no way to verify a supernatural realm. All we can do is say this happens and this does this. But how do you know it's God? You just can't. And that's the whole point. Just like the intelligent design argument does not get us to Yahweh, the experiences that repeat themselves do not get you to Yahweh. They just don't. They get you to the spaghetti monster just as well. You just don't know. And I'm not saying it can't be God. I'm saying, why don't we withhold belief until we have evidence to verify why we believe? There's just no reason.
And that's where, like, that's the difficulty of explaining it. Have you ever wanted, like, in a conversation with somebody, have you ever wished you could, like, take off the top of your head and take the other person and put them inside and encapsulate them so they could think? Because I know, like, I see you over there and you're like, Rick, if you could just see this like this, because if you could, then it would all make sense to you, because it makes perfect sense. And when I'm defining it to you and I'm like, it's verified. I've verified it to me. It's verified in me. It's things that it came from outside of me. It comes from within. It pulls out, it's like, this is going to explain something, these hands, but it's the only thing I can do. It's kind of like I'm trying to show you.
I bet you that if you put your head on mine, I could actually say, you're right, Rick. I can verify that when this happens, that happens. And you feel this when this happens. And when you talk to people and you pray together, you see this happen repetitively. I can verify that, but I actually wouldn't need your mind to do that. I would literally just be able to be a person that walks the road with you and experience it with you, because all these things you're saying are verified can be demonstrated naturally. What you're asking is for me to believe that you verified that a God from the supernatural realm was the cause of any of it. And I'm saying you can't know that. You just can't.
Let me give you another example. This is going to be weird. It's going to be a weird example, okay? I've had multiple people reach out to me. Multiple within our faith saying to me, you need to stop this. You need to stop this. Like, you're going too far. You don't need this. Talking about this discussion with you. And I say out loud, I feel compelled by the Holy Spirit to remain in this talk. I'm not going to stop. I say that because it is true. I say it because it's true. Now, for you, you're going to be like, nope, he's talking himself into it. And then I've got all these other people over here telling me that I'm talking myself into it.
Well, what I can say is
so frustrating.
I'm compelled by the same Holy Spirit you are, apparently, because I'm here and I'm loving this. And I think it's fun. But,
you don't have anybody.
The Holy Spirit.
I'm not coming at you trying to destroy your view.
No,
I'm coming at you. I'm trying to.
You want me to be a Christian because you think that is what's best for my life. And what I'm saying to you, and this was what
I don't want you to, Alan, I don't want you to be a Christian. I want you to try to stop taking something that's dear in people's hearts away from them if they truly believe it. And that's what it's about.
My concern is when you can determine anything by faith, that's when people like Jim Jones arrive. And that's
it does if they don't, if they don't have the fruits that I'm talking about.
You can't talk about fruit when it's just literally faith can believe anything, man. You can't tell them that they're wrong.
If you've
actually admitted that to me, that you can't tell them that they're wrong. You've said that to me.
If you don't see this incredible self-sacrificing, loving, and kindness, if you don't see it in them, then it's not what I'm talking about.
But you do see it in them until they give you the grape juice. Why do you think people follow them?
Jim Jones. No. You know Jim Jones. You know what Jim Jones was. That's a horrible selection. That's a terrible selection. But
the point is taken. Like, you can.
I understand high control. I understand that group.
Make people think that you have all these wonderful intentions and good works and manipulate people to Joseph Smith. He's a really good example. I'm just saying, if faith can believe anything, I'm trying to help people see that is a bad measure by which to live your life. A bad measure, because you cannot know that you're not even one of these that are deceiving themselves into thinking they're believing something true when it's not. And you don't know where that road's going to take you. And now we even have Christians. They call themselves hybrid Christians, I guess. The nuns and the duns. These are the nuns, where they don't have any affiliation with any Christianity. They just believe whatever they want. They call themselves Christians, and they choose what parts of the Bible they like and what parts they don't. And most of them are good people, and so they're choosing the good parts, But when's that one person going to come along that's going to choose all the heinous parts? And you can't stop them because, well, they have faith too. They're a Christian and they call themselves a Christian. And that's it. So this is my concern. This isn't about Alan's Promise Man. This is about
they could read over 3/4 of AlanBondar's book and escape that nut job.
Well, I would hope so.
But don't leave God.
my intention is not to take away anything. It's to demonstrate people that we should withhold belief until we have reason to believe. And that is the only safe way to live, because then you're always searching for what is truth and not just following whatever you settle on. Like, that is my beef with people who say you can prove Yahweh with the, intelligent design argument. No, you can't. You just settle on that conclusion, and that prevents you from searching for any other option. And some other option might be true. You might be right. It might be Yahweh. But if it is, you got lucky. You didn't put the work in to find that out for sure.
I've said this before on this talk, intelligent design argument is that's a hard road, man. That's a
It
hard road to
is.
go down.
But dude, parallel what you're saying. It is the exact
Hmm.
same thing as saying you can prove Yahweh to yourself through experience.
Hmm.
You can't.
Well, to myself, I can't.
Can you prove
I know we just
Yahweh to yourself through
again
intelligent design?
only through again, Alan, again. Please just get in my head for a minute. It is which came first, the chicken or the egg for me. I had life experience apart from God. I wasn't born in a Christian household. I wasn't raised in Christianity. We've talked about this when it happened to me when I was 10, and you said you believe that whenever that happened to me, that's when the brainwashing began. And I say no, because it didn't take until much later in my life that this started developing and coming through me as I matured. Yes, I'm still maturing as a person, but I also have these other things that are happening simultaneously. That is the only proof that proves it to me. And it hasn't left me, and I haven't been. I I can't shake that. It doesn't leave me. What do I do with that, man? Do you think? Hold on. Do you think, based on your idea of evidence, do you think that I'm insane? Possibly.
No, I think that you have been indoctrinated to settle on this conclusion, and everything that happens, you view through that worldview. And I think you can, if you can just let that go and say, you know what, I'm going to not believe something until I have verifiable evidence to do so, I think that you would actually see this. I don't think there's anything wrong with you. You're not mentally handicapped or anything of that sort. You're not dumb or stupid. In fact, you always say I'm smart. I think you're one of the smartest people I know. I love talking to you. I think we're on a very equal playing field in that regard. We love to have intellectual, verbal judo, and it's fun, and I enjoy this. But I definitely think that just like I think you're indoctrinated. Brainwashed is another word I like to use. And I'm not saying that lightheartedly, because I know I was there. I'm not just like some idiot and some asshole out here on the outside, just has always been an atheist coming in trying to destroy the Christian faith. That's not it at all. I journeyed in it, and I know the damage it can do to somebody. It can absolutely and utterly destroy you as an individual, and cause utter angst and depression in a person. And I want to prevent that in especially my nieces and nephews. Like, bro, I can't tell you how heartbroken I am to see them still stuck in this, and I know that it's just going to do damage. And then now they're raising their kids in it and teaching them. It breaks my heart. So I know the damage you can do, and that's why I care. That's what I'm trying to do. But let me ask you a question. And by the way, we're not going to do it today because I know you have to go. But I've been trying the whole time to get us full circle to those passages in the Old Testament, because I want to bring up some other responses to those. But we're not going to get to that today. I didn't want you to think I just went this direction and tried to ignore that. I've got stuff to say about that. But
Dude, I know you well enough to know that you didn't ignore that.
No, we'll bring it back.
I
to
know
next
that.
Time. But do you genuinely not care if I'm a Christian?
No, I think I do. Like, I do care, because you're one of those people that baffle me, you know. Um, I do. I think I do care, because the experiences that I've had with what I believe to be God, and I know you don't, and what I believe to be Jesus and the Holy Spirit in my life, are some of the most treasured moments that I've ever had, and I still experience these things now, and I want you so much to be able to have what it is that I believe that I have. But do I care? I mean, like, if you don't come along and do things exactly as me or whatever, just human to human, I'm going to care for you anyway. But as far as the beauty that I see in this, yeah, I wish you had it.
Of course.
I
And my
don't want.
sentiment's exactly the same, but from
I
the other
understand.
side. So we're both trying to bring each other into our promised land because we see beauty in it. And we
That's
see
right.
freedom in it. So we're going to fight mentally and intellectually as hard as we can to win the other person, because this is for me anyway. I mean, I think I sense this in you. It is a passion for me to see people free. It is a
Mm-hmm.
passion for you to see people love Jesus. So I can't imagine how you would not want that to be the outcome of this conversation. as much as I want the other to be there. And that's why we continue this dialogue, and we're in round 6, and I will go as long as we're willing to have healthy dialogue until we can no longer come to a place where it's worth talking about anymore. But, you know, and when that day comes, we'll be done the conversations, but we'll still be friends, hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah, but
I
mean, but I care very, very much about this, because I am, as an atheist, it is not my stance that God does not exist. It is my stance that I see no reason to believe he does. The day somebody can give me some evidence and demonstrate to me that he does, I'll be on board, which is why I'm saying to you, Rick, if you have some way to verify that you believe Jesus is real and these experiences were absolutely God, when you figure out how to demonstrate that to yourself, come tell me how to do it. And I would love to have that same experience. But do you
remember when you and I talked about the journal thing? Remember that? And then nobody on this is going to understand. I'll table that. Maybe I can bring it up next time, and we can actually give some background to this idea about the journaling of, you know, well over 25 cases, but that verify it to me, but I can't verify it to you because you weren't in it. Anyway, we can bring that up next week. Did anybody have any questions at all this week?
Yeah, we should do that. We got a few viewers. You guys got any questions? Put them in the chat. We're gonna time this out here. We got Nigel watching all the way from Australia today, man. Can you believe that?
Yes, I love Nigel.
Stayed up all night.
I love Nigel.
Yeah,
I really love him.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites. He's a great guy. Yeah, I don't have to debate him.
No, and you know, and I told Nigel this before, and I know this is difficult for other Christians to understand this. I wish people in my community would please just leave him alone. He's 70 years old, and he has fought, and I believe he has tried incredibly hard to defend his faith and the faith that he had, and he's left it, and it brutalized him. And I understand how this system can do that. Just be free. Be free. And I know people say that's hideous, but no, stop torturing him. Just let him live. He's 70. Let him go enjoy the next 35 years of his life. Do you like that, Nigel? You get to live till 105. But he lives in beautiful Australia, so it's worth it.
Yeah, well, you can live to 105 there, sure. Yes, yeah. And he will enjoy his last 35 years, and I'm sure he will enjoy them to the fullest. And
well, I'm coming to Australia next year, Nigel. So I'm coming to Adelaide, so I'm definitely going to go see him.
Damn, can I come in your suitcase?
You want to go?
I do.
You want to go?
I've always wanted to go to Australia.
Let's go to Australia, bro.
Let's do it, man. Wow. Right. That's more verbal judo we can have on the plane, man.
We could, and we could even have a little discussion with
Nigel. 2 against 1.
With Nigel. Bro. We could bring Ray and Holly, and they could go to the beach, and we could talk. No,
2 against 1, man.
I'm going to the beach while y'all are talking theology.
Yeah. No, I'm going to the beach too, man. That sounds way more fun. Anyway. Yeah, we have the plane ride, man. That's enough. Dude, this was fun. Thank you. I see no quiet. I mean, I see one. I think this is a troll. I'm not sure. Zishan Halim, my dear brother, would you join us in preaching the word of God among our people through video calls? No, I won't. Maybe Rick will. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was a very kind offer. I don't know who you are, and I don't know what you're preaching, but I don't want to be mean about it. But I appreciate the offer. Also, again, don't forget, guys, it's coming up at what time?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock Eastern.
Yep, 5 o'clock. 40 minutes from now. Go over there. Hit Myth Vision.
It's 5, or I thought it was at 7.
It's at 5.
Oh, okay, very good.
5 p.m. Eastern. Yep.
5 p.m. Eastern. All right, brother.
Rick, thank you, my friend. It's been really fun. Everybody else, thanks for joining in. And back here is 2 o'clock better next week or 3 o'clock, Rick?
You pick. It's fine.
All right. I like 3. 3 works.
Okay. 3's good.
As long as it's not interfering with your later stuff. Let's keep it.
Yeah, we're good. 3 o'clock's good.
All right. Sounds great. Everybody, until next time, live free.